Okay, awesome. Let's get things started here. So hi, everybody, and welcome to our Exploring the Equinox Search Algorithm Update. Very excited to have you here for one of the deep dives from our Fall 22 release. My name is Jessie Smith, and I'm from the product marketing team here at Yext. And I'm excited to introduce you to our speakers today. So today we're joined by Alex Yang, Max Davish, and Chris Z. And these are our three search product managers. And they are true experts on all things search here at Yext. And they are excited to give you an overview of all of the updates that they've made in this release to our algorithms. And one call out I wanted to make before we jump in here is we have a new release track on hitchhikers. And so we really wanted to help you all dive into all of our features across all of our product areas and have more learning material right away as soon as a release happens, so that you know exactly how you can turn on a feature, how you can use it to optimize your digital presence online, whether that's with listings or pages or search. And then also a really cool part of this is we have all of our product managers filming 1 to 5 minute demos of the new feature. And so we've embedded these videos that we actually use internally for our own education and enablement. And we wanted to expand that to all of you so that you could see this firsthand level access to the new features. So please check it out. If you have any questions, we'd love to hear from you in the community. And we really hope that you'll supplement, the webinars that you're attending like this with some of your own in hitchhikers learning. So as for today's agenda, we'll do a recap of our recent algorithm updates, and then we'll go one by one through the really impactful updates of the algorithm update. So clustering internationalization, test search enhancements, query suggestions 2.0, basic search in all languages, faster model deployments and indexing, and then we'll end with Q&A. So feel free to submit questions in that Q&A module that you see at the bottom of your Zoom screen, and we will save time at the end to answer any of your questions. We'd love to hear from you in this live session. And of course, if you think of anything later, you'll always have the chance to ask in the community. But we'd love to handle as many of these online as we can so we can all learn from each other's questions. And I will pass it over to you, Davish.
Awesome. Thanks so much, Jessie. There's so much exciting stuff in this release. I just went through the release track myself the other day, and I highly encourage everyone else to do so. I love those videos from the other product managers. Super helpful. Today, we're focusing on the Equinox algorithm update, which has some really awesome new features in search. As a reminder, we try to do at least 3 algorithm updates every year. This year, we've already done the Nebula and Solstice algorithm updates, which have involved some really, really exciting new features. In the Nebula algorithm update, we completely changed the way that we do vertical ranking to be much smarter and based on AI. We added serverless functions and query rules, and we added more languages for document search and semantic text search. Then last summer in the Solstice algorithm update, we added custom phrases in search, as well as the ability to search across relationships in the knowledge graph. And today we're really excited to take you through some of the new updates that are in the Equinox release. As a reminder, some algorithm updates involve completely new features for you to use, but some are just behind the scenes, gradual incremental updates that make the algorithm a little bit smarter. So even if you aren't taking advantage of every single new feature, the search algorithm is constantly just getting smarter and smarter. Our data science teams, our engineering teams are constantly tweaking things, taking advantage of the latest and greatest in machine learning and natural language processing to just make search smarter and smarter, to use all of the data that we have at our disposal, millions and millions of searches every year, to make things smarter and deliver better and better answers to your customers. So with that, I will pass it over to Chris to start taking us through some of the new features that are in the Equinox algorithm update.
Thanks, Max. Yeah, we're really excited to share with you all today some of the really cool updates that we've made to the search algorithm as part of the Equinox algorithm update. The first thing that we'd like to talk about is clustering internationalization. So for those of you not familiar with search term clustering, a little bit of background on what the feature is it's a really powerful search tool that allows search admins to evaluate search trends at scale. And what we mean by that is you can imagine a typical search experience having thousands and tens of thousands and maybe even hundreds of thousands of unique search terms. And that can make it really hard to parse through all of the individual search terms and kind of zoom out and figure out what are the key topics and what are the really important themes that people care about generally when they come to your search experience and run searches. So what clustering does is it takes each unique search term in your experience and it takes advantage of our embedding model, and it'll determine semantically similar search terms to each other. So it'll take these semantically similar search terms and group them together into clusters. And by looking at a cluster, you can look at basically variations of search terms that essentially mean the same thing. So prior to the fall release, you could only take advantage of clustering in an English language experience. So for example, if I were a Spanish administrator or a Japanese administrator, I wouldn't be able to take advantage of this super important feature. As part of the fall release, we've added support for clustering in select international languages. So if you look at our language reference doc that Jesse mentioned, this contains all of the languages that we support search term clustering in. So you can see that we already support English, but we've added support for Spanish, French, German, and Japanese. And we have Italian on our roadmap for the spring of 2023. So keep your eyes posted for that. So we've talked about what clustering is and why it's important. Let's actually look at a quick demo and see for ourselves how similar these search terms are. So right here, this is an example of the search term clusters home screen. And this is a, as you can see, Japanese experience. And I just wanted to call out this table. So this table contains all of the search term clusters for an experience. And if I click into the search term cluster, I can see all of the component search terms from that cluster. And each cluster is quote unquote named based on the search term that has the most searches in that cluster. And so for each search term, you can see a bunch of useful metrics around search volume, performance, and engagement. And you can also see the number of unique search terms that actually make up that cluster. So today, let's just look at the top 2 clusters by volume in this experience. And for each cluster, look at the first 3 search terms and just kind of make sure they're all similar to each other. So starting with this first cluster, we'll use Google Translate, our best friend, and we'll look at this first search term. So the first search term means change payment account. We would expect the next 2 search terms to be somewhat similar to that in meaning. It doesn't necessarily have to be identical to this, but it should mean directionally the same thing. So the next one is change payment method. We would say this is basically the same thing. And the one after that is stop using, which is maybe not as obvious, but you can interpret this as stop using this payment method or stop using this credit card. So you can see for this cluster, the topic is maybe something like change my payment method or change my payment card or something like that. So the first cluster looks pretty good. Let's look at the second cluster. So like the first one, we'll just look at the top 3 search terms and kind of figure out if they're similar or not. So this one starts with I have a notice or a notification or something like that. So we would expect the next 2 to be somewhat related to that. This one says check electricity rate, and this one says check electricity bill payment method. So these second and third one are very similar to each other semantically, and the first one might not sound the same, but you can all kind of assume that these are all related to some sort of notification, payment notice, a usage notice, or something like that. So overall, you can see that of the search terms that we looked at within each cluster, these are all pretty similar to each other. And you can kind of already see the value of search term clustering here. If you look at the number of search terms, unique search terms in these 2 clusters alone, These are over 600 unique search terms in 2 clusters. You can imagine the pain of looking through each individual variation of that search term just to basically arrive at the same 1 or 2 meanings. So that's kind of the power of search term clustering. It groups together variations of search terms and kind of extracts the main ideas out of those search terms and delivers them to you in a very digestible format. And now, as of the fall release, we are able to support this really cool feature in more than 1 language. So moving on, the next thing that we'd like to talk about are test search enhancements. So a little bit of background on what test search is, if you're not too familiar. Let me just load this test search experience. So the purpose of test search is threefold. It first of all allows you, like the name implies, to run a bunch of test searches. The second really important feature of test search is it allows you to view or debug a query that you've already run. So say you're testing a bunch of searches on your staging experience to see the results before deploying it to your live site. You can do this all in test search, and then you run a search and there's something wrong with it. You can go debug it in test search by clicking on either the search log details page, which shows you a bunch of different granular search factors that impact your search results and are the reason why those results are being returned to you. Or you can view the raw API response if you want to see the actual raw results that the search API returned to you. And the third thing you can do with test search is you can access what we call the search merchandiser, which is a really cool feature that we recently released that allows you to drag and drop search results into an order that you would like them to appear in. So these are the 3 main use cases of test search. The improvements that we've made to test search are mostly around usability of the feature and to overall make the appearance of test search much more like the actual live experience you'll see in production. And so we've done this in 2 ways. We've added the ability to search on verticals in test search. So if I go back to my test search and I fire up a vertical search, or I fire up a search, I can see that I'm currently in universal search indicated by this all tab. And if I scroll down, I can see each vertical and all of the vertical level results on the same page. But if you'll notice up here, I can see all of the component verticals that belong to this experience. So prior to the fall release, this wasn't available. I couldn't see all of these verticals in the experience. So while I could search on universal and see the verticals and the results, I couldn't actually interact with these verticals up here. So let me click into the guides vertical. And what I'm doing here is I'm basically executing a search for guides on the vertical for guides instead of universal. And you can see here how the results are different. These results are all of the guide entity type. And so I can see, I'm able to execute vertical searches. If I click into help articles, you can see the results they load are going to be different because I'm running a vertical search for guides on the help articles vertical now. So that's the first thing that we've added to test search, the ability to search on verticals. The second thing that we've added in this release is the ability to apply facets in test search. So what facets are is they're a type of post search filter that allow you to take a given result set from a query and further refine them based on some sort of attribute from a result entity. So you can see here, I've run my search for guides on the guides vertical, and I have all of my results. And up here, I have a facet option for the interface field. And so this is a searchable field on these result entities. And for this searchable field, I have a set of enum results. So these are types of interfaces that I can pick from and filter this set of results down even further with. So let's say I want to narrow my results down to guides with the CAC interface. All I have to do is click that facet, and now I have my results narrowed down. If I wanted to apply further filters, so if I wanted to apply facets on guides with CLI, CAC, and SDK, what I'm doing here by clicking on them is basically applying a filter to my results for guides such that the interface is of CLI, CAC, or SDK type. And if I clear all, you can see my original result set. So this is a really common feature that we see on a lot of production level search experiences. And now we've added that ability in test search. And this, along with the ability to search on verticals in test search, is a really big usability improvement. And it really brings test search up to parity with our production level experiences in terms of being able to test your searches on an interface, on an experience that is much more similar to the actual thing that your consumers will see on your live site. So those are the two big improvements that we've made with test search. Next, we should talk about query suggestions, and the improvements that we've made to query suggestions, we're calling them query suggestions 2.0. So a little bit of background on what query suggestions are is they are a way to surface prompts to users whenever they click into or interact with or type in your search bar. So in the platform today, query suggestions are controlled in the query suggestions screen. And there are three key ways you can configure query suggestions today. The first type of query suggestions you can configure are universal hard-coded prompts. So these are hard-coded prompts at the universal level, such that when I click into the search, test search, I can see that these are hard-coded universal prompts. And these will appear whenever the user clicks into the search bar. The second way of configuring query suggestions is through popular queries, which I currently have disabled. Popular queries are auto-generated query suggestions based on, as the name implies, popular queries that your users search for in your experience. And the third type of query suggestions are vertical prompts. So these are configured at the vertical level. So I have my vertical for guides here. And much like universal prompts, you can configure vertical level hard-coded prompts, but you can also configure embedded field prompts. So what this prompt is doing, for example, is it's calling the knowledge graph and looking at all of the guides entities and taking the name field from those guides entities and surfacing them as prompts to the user. So these are the three main ways of configuring query suggestions today. So the improvements that we've made to the query suggestion system are threefold and, again, centered on usability of the system. The first thing that we've done to query suggestions is we've made it much faster for a query suggestion that you've configured to actually show up in the experience. So let me just configure a universal prompt really quickly. Previously, if I made a bunch of query suggestion additions at one time, if I just added like 10 or 15 or something like that at one time, it could take potentially a long time for these suggestions to show up. It could take minutes, several minutes, up to potentially hours for this prompt, these prompts that I've added to show up in my experience. Under the new system, it's much faster. So if I add a new set of prompts in the new system, it should appear within a minute or so. So that's the first big improvement that we've made. I'm not going to really sit around and wait for this to appear, but hopefully by the end of this demo, it'll show up in the experience. So I'll move on to the second thing that we've done. The second thing that we've done is we've added the ability to save query suggestions for configuration versions. So what we mean by that is previously you could only view query suggestions for your production level configuration version. So this is the version that's powering your live site. And this made it really hard for you to test changes that you were making to your query suggestions. You couldn't test them on a version that wasn't actually impacting and facing your live customer traffic. So with this new system, we actually are able to save query suggestions for each individual configuration version that you create. So for example, this production label is set to a configuration version from about a month ago. So it's pretty old. And I have it set to production right now. And so if I click into the search bar, this is the only universal prompt that appears because this is the set of universal prompts that was configured with that version from about a month ago. If I look at a much more recent version, let's just look at the staging version, which is the most recent version from today. You can see that I have a different set of prompts. And these are a much more recent set of prompts I've configured. And so if I refresh the page, okay, so this one hasn't showed up yet, but you can see that these are a different set of prompts from the production version. So that's the second big change that we've made, is we've added the ability to save query suggestions for unique configuration versions. And the third change that we've made, and this is perhaps the most impactful, is we've made our query suggestions much smarter and much more intelligent in the way they surface prompts to users. And so what I mean by that is, if I click into here today and I want to look at the prompt for reset your password. In the old system, if I wanted to get this prompt to show up, I would basically have to start typing my query using the exact same characters as this prompt began with. So as an example, to get this prompt to show up, I have to start typing reset, and you can see that this prompt is being returned. In the new system, we have revamped it such that we can now match on any word in the prompt. So to get this same prompt to show up now, I don't need to start my query with reset. I can type in a different word in this query. So for example, I can start typing password, and you can see that this prompt shows up again, and this pretty relevant prompt also shows up. And under the old system, this query would not have returned any prompts. So now we're unlocking a lot more relevant prompts and query suggestions for the users under our new system. So to sum it up, the three big changes that we've made to query suggestions are: we have made it much faster for query suggestions to appear in the search bar. We've added the ability to save query suggestions for unique configuration versions, so you can view query suggestions for non-production level experiences. And we've made the token matching much more intelligent in terms of surfacing prompts to users. So the next thing I want to talk about is we've, as part of this release, added support for basic search in all languages. And so what we mean by basic search is these are the basic text search features that most other platforms will provide you. So these are things like text search and filtering and faceting and things like that. And by all languages, we really mean all languages. So if you look at this reference doc, we really mean by all other languages. So if you wanted to spin up an experience in Estonian, we would support that. So that's a really cool feature that we've recently added. So now you can spin up experiences in several international languages of your choice. As a side note, it is important to call out that if you want more advanced search features that require our pre-trained AI models, so things like semantic text search and extractive question answering, those are only available in certain international languages. So if I look at semantic text search, for example, these are the languages that feature is available in. Extractive QA, likewise, these are the same languages that that feature is available in. But other than that, if you're not looking for those features, you can now spin up a search experience in any language you want. And with that, I'll pass it over to my colleague Alex to talk about faster model deployments and indexing speed.
Yeah, absolutely. Thanks, Chris. So this last feature that we wanted to cover, I think, is a feature that is often maybe understated or underappreciated, but which we're really excited as part of the Equinox update and the fall release. And that includes general improvements that we've made to the infrastructure that all of the search experiences built on our platform use. Now, I think our users will experience the improvements we've made in our infrastructure in two main ways. The first is we've made a lot of improvements to the system and the tools that we use to deploy new AI models to production search experiences. So AI models are a really core part of our search platform. For example, if you use semantic search, behind the scenes, we have an embedding model, which is used to provide semantic search. Similarly, if you use document search, we have an extractive question answering model behind the scenes that provides that feature. We have a really excellent data science and machine learning operations team that is constantly working on making improvements to these models, training and upgrading new versions of these models. But previously, up to this point, I would say we have only been able to release new models on roughly a semi-annual basis, a few times a year. Well, with the improvements that we made in the fall release, we're hoping that while we can't necessarily commit to a certain cadence going forward, we think our users will see a much accelerated timeline of new model releases going forward. So that's the first update that we made to our infrastructure. The second that I think our users will experience is general improvements to the speed at which changes to your knowledge graph or search configuration are indexed and appear in your live search experience. So ever since the previous release, which was the summer release, search now uses the technology behind the scenes called streams, which if you're not familiar with streams is the technology that's responsible for delivering content from your knowledge graph to consumer-facing applications like search. Well, in the fall release, we've not only made a number of improvements to streams that improve the speed and the reliability of that system, we've also improved search's integration and usage of streams to allow you to index new content in your knowledge graph or changes to your search configuration and view those changes live in your search experience much faster than before. So those are the general improvements that we've made to the infrastructure behind search in the fall release. I think you'll hear much more from us going forward in this regard with these types of updates. So with that said, I think I'll hand it back to Jesse to go into Q&A.
Yeah, awesome. So now, thank you everybody for sharing those updates with us. It's always awesome to hear directly from our product managers who are on the cutting edge and, you know, the ones who know the most about these updates. So please feel free to submit any questions that you have through the Q&A module. And I will get started reading some of these questions for our product managers. Okay, so we had a clarification question about the basic search in all languages. It says, what do you really mean by all languages?
By all languages, we mean all languages.
Yeah, we've had some follow-up questions in the community. We just want to assure everyone it truly is all languages, right?
Yes, it's all languages.
Great. So let's see. The other question we have is, if a customer uses search on an English-speaking experience, but types their query in another language like Spanish, would this appear separately to similar queries that have been made on the same search bar in English? Like how would that get handled?
Yeah, I'm happy to take this one. So if you have a multi-language search experience set up on our platform, something that we didn't show in our demo, but which is available is on the clustering screen, there's a filter that allows you to view clusters in different languages. So we will cluster all of the English queries together, and then we'll also separately cluster all the Spanish queries together. And then you can choose between which ones you want to view on that screen using the language filter.
Awesome, thanks, Alex. So we also had a question asking, does token prefix matching work across both hard-coded prompts and popular queries?
I can take this one as well. The short answer is yes, it absolutely does. It works across all three of the different types of query suggestions that Chris outlined: popular queries, hard-coded queries, as well as Mad Lib queries, which are defined from your knowledge graph.
Awesome. Alex, do you want to give a really quick explanation of what a Mad Lib query would be?
Yeah, absolutely. So in the example that Chris showed earlier, when we were looking at the vertical prompts, so something that he had was it looked like two brackets with a field defined on the inside, which was name. Yeah, I see Chris is pulling it up here. So that is an example of a Mad Lib prompt. So essentially what we're doing behind the scenes here is with all the different name fields for that vertical in your knowledge graph, we will return those values as prompts in your query suggest.
And so that could be particularly useful if it's like embedded with other words like cardiologist accepting new patients in bracket city, so that if somebody typed in Brooklyn, they could expect to see a query populate like cardiologists accepting new patients in Brooklyn.
Exactly right. Exactly right. You can compose these prompts using other words, other fields even, and they'll all appear in query suggest as such.
Awesome. Let's see. So now that query suggestions can surface prompt matches on any word from the prompt, do you give any visual indicator to which word the prompt is matching on? This would be useful in situations where the prompt is long and the user doesn't want to scan each word of the prompt.
Yeah, I can take this one. So that's a great question. We actually do that. So let me just type in the query for reset your password again, and I'll start by typing password. So if you notice here, we actually apply a special set of font highlighting to a word that is being matched on in that autocomplete prompt. So you can see here that we apply a normal font bolding here for this word password because that's the one being matched. And any word in the prompt that is not being matched on is going to be bolded. And that gives that visual indication that that word is not being considered in the prompt matching. And Google does something very similar to this. So it's not, it's something that you can try out for yourself.
Awesome. Thanks, Chris. Okay. So for query suggestions 2.0, so query suggestions are saved for every configuration version. Can you elaborate on this change and what steps would I need to take with this change? In other words, do I need to update the configuration version to the latest branch to see the current suggestions on my production site?
Yeah, I can take this one. So previously, query suggestions were only saved for the production version of your search experience. So what the production version controls is essentially which version of your configuration is being used on your live website. Given limitations with the old query suggestion system, we could only save one version of your query suggestion. So we decided to do the one that you have defined for your live site. The change that we made in this release is we now save a set of query suggestions for every single version of the configuration that you have saved. What that means is that if you change which configuration version you're viewing in the platform, for example, you will see different query suggestions depending on what you had saved in that particular configuration version. Now, I don't remember the second part of the question. I think it was, what action do I need to take to take advantage of this feature? And the short answer is you don't need to do anything. Query suggestions 2.0 is already enabled on all of your experiences today. So you're already taking advantage of the latest system and all of these improvements.
Yeah, I think it was specifically about version, like updating to different configuration versions. Like if you were to make changes to your query suggestion, your hard-coded prompts or something, like, do you need to change the production version or the staging version?
I see. So yeah, you will need to update the production version if you want the latest changes that you make to query suggestions to appear on your live website, because as I mentioned before, the production label controls which version of your configuration appears on your website. But the query suggestion update should happen as part of updating that production label.
Awesome, thank you. We have a question here about clustering. So if my search experience is in a language that supports clustering, do I need to manually turn on the feature? And how would I get clusters to appear?
I can take that one. So the short answer is no, you don't have to do anything. If you want clustering, you obviously have to have some level of search volume, but basically clusters should just automatically start appearing in the search term clustering screen. And we calculate these clusters on a weekly basis. So that's how often they'll be updated, but you won't actually have to go in and do anything yourself to turn it on.
Awesome. I only see one other question here. So if you have any, definitely submit. I want to make sure we give everyone time to ask questions. A question we have here is, are the test search improvements also reflected on the query rules edit page?
I can take that one as well. That's actually a good question. So the two improvements that we made are vertical search and faceting. So vertical search is available in all iterations of test search. Faceting, however, is only available in the full screen test search that is accessible via the Home tab. So to answer your question, it is not available in the query rules page. So in the query rules page, you can view different verticals and execute vertical searches, but you can't view facets.
Great. Do you have any plans, or we have one more question. Do you have any plans to release any new clustering support for new languages at any point in the future?
We do. We plan to release clustering in Italian in the near future in the next release. And there may be other languages down the road that we haven't yet decided, but if you have any suggestions, please do reach out on the ideas board or reach out otherwise, and we'd be happy to consider them.
Yeah, awesome. And that's a great segue. I wanted to say thank you, everybody, for your active participation today. We hope you're as excited about the Equinox algorithm update as we are. In general, if you have requests or ideas for features you'd like to see at Yext, I can't overstate how important our ideas board is to our product team and how much that has an impact on the product release cycle. If we know that there are certain things that are important to you all, or that a lot of people are asking for, it really helps with our sense of priority. So if there's certain languages you've been waiting for, or certain features you just think would make a huge impact on your business, we want to hear from you. And that's on our Hitchhikers platform. There is an ideas board where you can submit an idea. You can upvote somebody else's idea if you like it, and it would make an impact on your business as well. And you can comment on an idea. And you even get to engage with product managers who can comment back and give you an update and let you know, this feature has been released, or it's on the roadmap for, 2023 later in the year. So we've had a ton of success and really hope that you'll all participate in that. If any questions come up for you as you're going through the release track, or as you're turning on any of these features, don't hesitate to submit a question through a community post. We have a ton of webinars coming up for other deep dives for the fall release. And then we also do platform basics sessions on a regular basis. So keep an eye out for our events. Definitely check out all of the amazing resources and reference guides that we have on the Hitchhikers platform, and stay in touch. We'd love to hear from you. So thank you, everybody.